I have a 2005 Saturn Ion 2.2 liter engine, non-turbo. This is not the red line, but the process is the same. So I am replacing the clutch today. It includes the pressure plate, clutch disc, throwout bearing, and that's it for now. If I run into anything, if I see anything, I'll also show you guys what to look for, common things that need to be replaced. First thing we're going to do, we're going to clear up this spot up here. So we're going to first disconnect the battery, then we're going to take the computer out, and then we're going to take the fuse box out. As most of you probably know, the battery's in the trunk. So you don't have to disconnect both. You can just disconnect the ground if you want. It's an 8mm wrench or socket, 8mm. All right, go up to the front and disconnect the computer. So these are going to be flipped up like this. You're going to flip them down and then it'll just pull right off. And this one will be flipped over here. You just push it down right here and it will actually allow you to pop it up. And then you go ahead and pull it off. This will have 3 clips on it. One of which is right here. Don't know if you can see it because of the lighting. But so you stick a screwdriver in there and pry it off. So be careful when you're taking it off. There's 3 clips on the back. There's one here, and there's one down here. So that would be here. You have to get it from the top. There's going to be one here. You're going to have to get it with a screwdriver from the bottom. And then there's going to be one down here that you can get from the front. To remove the fuse box, you need to first disconnect this one and this one. They're going to be 10mm. So go ahead and do that. Once you do that, the bolt down here is a 1/2 inch. And then it does have 2 10mm. One is here, and the other is up here by the water reservoir. So does have 2 10mm and 1/2 inch. So what I ended up doing was I took these 3 screws, I loosened them up until they snug up. There's tabs. There's one here. Actually, they're on the bottom piece, but you pull it out. There's another one over here, and there's another one on the back side right here. One at a time, just pull them up. It'll separate a little bit, go to the next one, pull it up. It'll separate a little bit more, go to the next one, pull it up. It'll separate completely. Just wiggle it loose. Take note of how these wires are in order. They're color coded. White on the left, gray in the middle, green on the right. Unplug those. This piece should come off. This piece is already out, but this is kind of in the way. So I'm just going to go ahead and unplug them, pull that out, and then wrestle this stupid thing out here. Got it out. Don't remove the covers on the bottom. It's not necessary. Those 3 8mm or 7mm bolts on the top is what holds these in. Screws in the middle. What you have to do is you have to loosen it a little bit. Well, loosen it as much as you can until it has resistance. Wiggle it loose. It'll come out about halfway. Continue and then go back to the top. Loosen it more, and that should be all you need. And then wiggle it out. It should come out. Keep the covers on because that's the only thing that's color coded. This dark gray or gray, I'm going to call this one white. I'm going to call this one gray. This one, the block itself is black, but so is the green one that's down here. Well, actually, it's dark gray. I don't know. Just leave the covers on there because it can get confusing because the colors don't match. Since basically right now we're doing everything from the top, and then we'll do everything from the sides, then we'll do everything from the bottom. So since we're up on top right now, let's go ahead and strap the radiator up to the top frame because, well, it's basically resting in between. So I would suggest either some zip ties. I didn't have long enough zip ties, so I used some string, and I just did a couple trucker's knots. Whatever works for you. The whole objective is just to hold the radiator up to the top frame so it's not being mounted to the bottom frame. Next, we need to remove the hydraulic line that comes from the clutch slave cylinder, which is this line right here. Looks to me that there's a metal clip that you just pull out. Once you pull that out, your thing should slide away. Be careful, have something underneath to catch the hydraulic fluid because it may leak. Also, if you keep the line above the reservoir, it won't drip. But don't stress it, don't bend it, don't kink it, because you might end up having to replace the hose. Okay, so I removed it. Basically, the bleeder valve stayed here. The hydraulic line, I ended up running up here. So the coolant reservoir is holding it up for me, and it's not leaking, so that's good. I would suggest loosening up the top bolt now, just so you have it here. Hopefully I'm not missing any bolts, because there's a hole here and a hole here, so it looks like maybe somebody did some transmission work and didn't replace all my bolts. And go ahead and make sure your wheels are in a straight position. Put car in neutral. Apply the emergency brake and lock the steering wheel in its straight position. Alright, the next step is to loosen, just loosen, don't take them off, but loosen the lug nuts and the CV axle bolts. CV axle is held on with a 30mm bolt. I had to run down to the store and get it, so just loosen it about a quarter or to half turn. And then we'll take the tires off. Next, we need to jack the car up. Depending on how we're going to approach this, will matter on how high we jack the car up. I'm just trying to get it out the side. In that case, we don't need it that far off the ground. If we are going to drop the subframe, we're going to need the car 18 to 24 inches off the ground. So I jacked it up from the subframe. You can either jack it up on each side with 2 jacks. Up right here. That's where I'm putting my stamps. With your tires removed, place them on each side of the vehicle. Keep track of which one goes where, because some of them are one direction tires. These ones don't seem to be, but just to be safe, I'm going to keep them to the side of each side of the vehicle. You need to drain the transmission fluid. It does use hydraulic fluid for the clutch. The refill hole is right here. The drain hole is actually down there. It uses an 8mm hex bit. The problem is that you need to have a very short hex bit to be able to use it. Seeing as the bolt is right there, my hex bit doesn't fit, and I have tried prying on the transmission against the subframe to move it. That didn't work. Could not move it enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and grind this down, because it does not need to be that long anyway. Now careful when you're doing this, because you need to you don't want to grind the corners down. Because as you can see, I kind of nicked it, but it'll be fine. So it'll take a while. Once you're done with that, it goes like this to get it leveled out. Alright, so I ground it down. I showed you where I nicked it, and it's pretty much got rid of all that nicked area. So as you can see, kind of going over the edge a little bit, so I will go flatten it out on that side, the side of that grinding wheel for a quick second, and we'll give this a shot. Hopefully this is short enough. You have to take breaks because it does get pretty hot. And now it fits. Fits. Alright, as you can see, I have a cheater bar on here. Use that because it's pretty tight. Oh shit. So I have my drain pan under there. I broke loose the bottom one, the drain plug, but I'm actually going to remove the fill plug, and I'm actually going to use it's an Allen socket with some extensions, just so it's easier, because I couldn't really get my hex bit in there, my Allen wrench in there. But remove that top fill plug, and then remove the drain plug. I don't know if it's necessary. I'm just doing it that way we don't get any air pockets or whatnot. We have our transmission fluid drained. You can just put your drain plugs back in. You don't have to tighten them down, because we're going to need them when we're filling it up anyway. Also, torquing them down, torquing that bottom one down is going to be pretty difficult, so I'll deal with that later. Right now we're going to go ahead and remove the whole hub and suspension. So what we need to do is we need to take off the tie rod bolt, take that out. We need to take the lower control arm bolt. You can't see it, there we go, right there. Take that off. Take these two bolts off for this. We're going to take the caliper off. That will bring this whole thing off. Then we can pull the CV. Well, you should have already broken this bolt loose. You're not going to be able to turn it with your hands, but you're going to be able to turn it with the breaker bar without the whole thing spinning. And then after that, we're going to go ahead and remove this, which is this bolt here. I'm going to start with the tie rod. So I broke the bolt loose. What you want to do is you want to just leave it on there, covering up the threads. Or you could use a brass hammer. I seem to have misplaced my hammer. I don't know how, but leave the nut on so it's covering up the threads, and go ahead and then give it a good whack. Yeah, that's not budging. Sometimes you gotta pry. It's gonna be a battle. I'll go ahead and show you guys what I did when I'm done. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and start loosening up some other things to see if that makes it any easier for me. Okay, grabbed a light. So what I went ahead and did was I'm gonna take this strut bar off. So I took this, broke that loose, got the bottom one that's on the back side, broke that loose. Break them both loose so you can take them off with your fingers before you take them off. Then see if I can hold the flashlight and my phone at the same time. Take them off. And that thing will come off pretty easy. For some reason I still have this on there. Anyway. Just wiggle it out of there. And don't know if it matters which side's up, which side's down. But mine, the one that was on the top, has that little brown mark right there, so that's how I'll keep track. Now that I have that off, it's not any looser, but I don't know. So I'll go ahead and loosen up these. Go ahead and disconnect this ABS sensor and get it out of the way, and I'll come back to you. Oh yes, and the two nuts on the sway bar has something to do with the sway bar. The sway bar is the one that goes all the way behind the engine up to the other side. That is a sway link, I think. That had two 18mm bolts. Okay, so what I ended up doing was I broke those two bolts loose for the strut. So what you do is it's two 18mm nuts on this side. I believe that these don't turn. They didn't turn for me. I believe that they're tapered in there. So what you do is you take these two nuts off on this side and pound the bolts through. When you do that, the whole thing will lean forward towards you, which is good because I can't get the control arm nut off. I don't have tools that fit right there, which it looks like it would, but for some reason it's hitting the curved part of the hub right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take those bolts out. Hopefully it will swing it. Hopefully I can take that out, lean it forward, move it, and then I guess you should take this bolt off before you take that off. That way it's easier. So take that off, take those out, and then hopefully you can swing it down and get that nut off right there, and then you can get that off. What I ended up doing was, okay, I took this bolt off the CV axle, and I actually took those nuts off, took that little, there was a little, that thing right there for the ABS plug was on there. I took it off, put the nuts back on. I'm going to pound on those now. So, let's see if that works. Well, they're coming a little bit. I mean, it did pop through this side a little bit, but it'll be some effort, so I'll come back to you on that one. So yes, they are tapered. If you can look at the end, if my camera will focus, it does have little splines on there, so this does not spin. And these were the ones that came out of the strut. So next, now this moves some, so I can remove, well, I need to get that off next, the tie rod, and then I can get the CV axle off, and then I'll get the control arm bolt out. What I ended up doing was put these bolts back in, then tried hammering it. That didn't work, so I got my jack, got a block of wood, put the jack underneath the strut bolt, jacked it up until it started to lift the vehicle up, and just hammered it here, hammered it up, did everything. Just kept beating it, dude. That's all you had to do. Just keep beating it. Finally popped off, lowered the jack, took the nut off real easy. So I went ahead and broke loose the caliper bolts, and then I'm gonna pull these out, pull the caliper off, swing this down, get the control arm bolt out, and then remove the CV axle. Alright, yeah, so that was fun. Took the caliper off, got the CV axle off, got the hub off. Yeah, this was a pain. So I thought, I don't know what I thought, but basically that goes in this hole here. There you go. And no, actually it goes in that hole, and a bolt just goes through there onto the other side, and you just pinch it. You just squeeze it. When it's tight, it's just squeezed together. So thought that was kind of unique for a suspension thing, but nonetheless, got it off. Next, I'm gonna go ahead and take this off. It's being held on with an 18mm bolt at the top. Take that off. Should just drop right down. Got the strut out. A lot more room now. So yeah, it was just that one bolt on top. You pull it out the bottom, and then you get a lot more room from that. Take the 13mm bolt off for the brake line. Actually, before removing that bolt, what you should do is you should actually loosen up this. It's a 12. Was it 12? Oh, you can still see. So yeah, I would loosen up this. I took my whole caliper off because I couldn't find a good spot to tie it up where it wasn't going to be in the way. If I am going to end up pulling my transmission this way, it was going to be in the way. I believe it was a 1/2 inch. Yeah, 1/2 inch it is. So take that off, put your bolt back in so you don't lose it, move it out of the way. All right, so we need to get the CV axle out of here. I was having a hard time. It doesn't want to just pull out, so you might have to, I mean, I tried pretty hard pulling it out. I mean, there's nothing holding it in. It does just slide in. There's no retaining clip or anything like that. So it's just a matter of pulling it past that point. Okay, so next we need to get the CV axle off. I was having a hard time. Make sure you put an oil pan underneath where the CV axle connects to the transmission, because it might leak a little bit. Next, If you can't get it to come off by pulling it, take a pry bar. Be careful of ruining the seal. But I'm going to stick mine right there. Lighting kind of sucks, but I'm going to stick it right here, and I'm just going to hit it with the palm of my hand a couple times and see if that works. So that worked for me. What I ended up doing was I took the pry bar and I stuck it between the transmission and the CV axle right here, and I pried this way. You don't want to pry the other way because you can ruin the seal. Pry away from the seal. And make sure again that your drip pan is underneath the CV axle, and just go ahead and pull it out. Your seal, make sure that it didn't get damaged. This one looks okay. It's not like brand new looking, but it looks like it'll seal, and I'm not going to worry about it. It wasn't leaking before, so it doesn't look pinched or crunched or anything. The next step is to remove these shifter cables. Now, I haven't seen any shifter cables before that never had a retaining clip or bolted on. I've done my research, couldn't find anything explaining how to do this. So I'm going to go ahead and pry them off evenly, maybe using some needle nose pliers opened so it's even on both sides, or if you have like one of those ball joint forks, a small one, maybe use that. But I will go ahead and give it a shot. Hopefully it doesn't break. Hopefully it snaps on, snaps off, because these are not cheap and they are a pain to replace. Okay, popped off. I ended up using a little crowbar thing. You can see the other one behind it. So it's the same thing, but it's going to be harder to get to. Maybe get it from underneath the car from the back side. Okay, so I got the bottom one. I ended up using a crowbar, a traditional crowbar. I actually used this side of it. So I put this on it like that, and then I lift it up. Came right off. Next, we need to take it off of that mount down there, right here. They should slide off that way. Okay, had to mount my flashlight so I could show you guys this. So this is what you have to do to get them off. There's actually a spring-loaded thing on the back side, so it's really hard to do one-handed. What you do is you push it and then you lift it off. Keep track of which one goes where. The white one went to the bottom one, and the black one was on the top. What you do to take them off when they're on that mount that's on the transmission, you separate it like this and slide it off. Okay, so next we need to remove all of the electrical connections from the transmission. There's one right here from the wheel well. I believe it's the speed sensor. You get a screwdriver, flip this top tab up, and it will pull right out. And then if you follow this, you need to take split that apart with a screwdriver. It'll split and come off. Follow that up. There's another connector right in there. See those blue tabs? It's going to be the exact same deal. Disconnect those. And that clip right there, that is actually a zip tie. So just cut that off. Where you see that yellow and blue right there, might look green on the camera, it's kind of dumb looking, but that yellow and blue connector is actually on the very back of this transmission, right where it's sitting. It plugs in right there. Lift the tab up with your finger or a screwdriver, pull it straight back, and then disconnect that connection the same way. You can actually see that cable that I was talking about earlier better from this side. There it is. And a better, so you can better see what I was talking about, that yellow and blue connector down there. You can see it like barely. There it is right there. And then there's another one just right next to it. I'm sorry about the very poor lighting, guys, but yeah, that connector right there, it's an electrical connector that needs to be unplugged. Unplug that. Next, we need to get this splash guard off right here because it covers up the bottom bolt for the subframe. So there's a clip there. You pry a screwdriver in the top piece, it'll come out. You don't have to take it out all the way. Once you get it out halfway, it'll allow you to pull the bottom piece out. There's another one there too. Then this one's a screw. I believe it's a 7mm screw. There's a clip up here. And there's another screw right here. And underneath the car, covering the bolt that we need, there's one here. There's another one here. There's another one there. There's another one there. There's one up there. And there's one there. Remove those, and it should come off. Okay, I got it out. So didn't tell you guys about the ones that are on this side. So yeah, it goes all the way around and under the front of the car. So it goes all the way around the fender well and then underneath the car. I had a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 clips and 2 7mm screws. I only broke like 2 clips, which is really good. Usually I end up breaking more than half of them and having to go down to AutoZone and get some more. We should take the starter off. So you can do two ways. You could either take it off the engine and strap it up somewhere out of the way and leave the wires hooked up, or you could just take it off all the way, which is what I'm going to do. There's a bolt right there, and there's a bolt on the top behind it. It's easiest if you use an extension and a ratchet to get the one behind it. Okay, so just to give you guys an idea of where that bolt is that's behind the starter, I have a 6-inch, I think it's a 6-inch extension on here. There are 2 15mm bolts. So what I did was I just put the extension on there and I put my ratchet on. So it's like straight back in the very middle of the starter. Next step is to loosen up the transmission bolts. I ended up just letting my starter stay where it's at now because I really was just too lazy to take those wires off, and also that top bolt's gonna be not so much fun to put back on, so I'd rather not have to. But the reason we had to take it off was because there's a transmission bolt behind here. So what someone said to me, I don't see a transmission bolt, but oh well. Oh, there it is. Yeah, there is a transmission bolt up there. Right up there. So before we take the transmission off, I keep trying to just jump into it. We got to get this CV axle off. This is actually called an intermediate shaft. Got to get this off. Hopefully I can take it off without having to take it all the way off. I don't want to have to deal with the suspension on that side. So I'm hoping that I can just push that out of the way, maybe swing it to the side or something like that. Maybe up there or something. I highly doubt that that's how it's gonna work, but and then after we do that, we can take the transmission mount off on this side, the lower one. I mean the one up there and the one down here. We'll need to support the engine and transmission with a jack when we do that. I'd actually suggest breaking loose the transmission bolts before taking off those mounts, otherwise you're gonna be moving around, it'll be a lot harder. So break them loose and then take the mounts off. Also, there's a splash guard that covers up this front bolt other than that big one that we had to take off. It's a little bit smaller. You gotta get that off. Okay, so as far as that intermediate shaft, we are going to have to I'm gonna try taking the tie rod off with this 18mm bolt. Take that off. Hopefully I can turn this enough so I can pull it out without having to take anything else off. Fun as I had with the tie rod on the opposite side, I get to have on this side. So I got a jack with a block of wood. Hey, it came off. I didn't even have to do shit. Wow, it kind of scared me. So I put a block of wood on a jack, jacked it up. I put the nut back on before I jacked it up so I don't mess up the threads. Usually, when you have this much trouble with it, when you can't get it with a hammer, you do what I just said, put the block of wood in a jack, and you beat it this way. You just keep hammering it in different ways until it eventually breaks loose. You might have seen the car move because I actually had all the car's weight on it. I mean, I had it lifted off the jack stand maybe ½ inch. But it's off now. I can't pull it out because the nut's still on the backside, but if you lower this, and I'm pinched, you know, if that car would have fallen on me, it would have been awesome because I got this much room between me and a trailer and boat trailer. So yeah, I was just sitting right there. It would have been awesome. So you can go ahead and lower the jack now. Take the nut off of that, and you should be able to turn the hub now. If you take this off, put the nut back on so you don't ruin any threads or lose the nut. Now you can turn this. I think it'd be better turn it this way, but anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and give it a shot and tell you guys how I ended up getting it off. Okay, easy way of getting this out of the hub: put the nut back on a little bit and hit it with a brass hammer. It's important that you use a brass hammer because, as you can tell by looking at the hammer absorbs the impact rather than making the other metal absorb the impact. Now it's out. Take the nut out, push it through. That doesn't leave enough clearance, so what I ended up doing was take the sway link off. Wow. Took the sway link off. Next I'm going to go ahead and take these two bolts off. That way this thing will actually swing this way now. The only other thing holding it on besides the strut is the control arm. So if I take this off, it's just gonna swing forward and I'll be able to lift up to the top or whatever.
Can't find my ratchet. It's not under my tire. It's not under my splash guard. It's not under my hub assembly. It's not under my brake caliper. Oh, but that's where my pocket knife went. Okay.
Just like the other side, once you get these off, you just push the bolts through and it will pop off. I didn't show this last time, but if you can't get these bolts out just by pulling them, well, see, I can get the bottom one out. So if you can get one of them out and not the other one, it might make it easier to take that one bolt out that you can get and then jack the hub assembly up with a jack. Use a block of wood so you don't damage your rotor. Don't jack it up too much because you're going to put more pressure on it, and then you can wiggle it loose. Once you pull that out, it's just going to be loose. Like I said, the only thing holding it now is this control arm, so you can move it wherever you want. Wiggle that out of there. Basically, you got to take a hammer, or if you can just push the thread apart through as much as you can. Go around, grab it firmly on the metal base. Don't pull from the rubber boot. Metal base, pull it, and once you get it out, you kind of have to like put it at a bad angle like this, bend it, and then pull it out. Do that. Go underneath the car, which is what I'm going to do right now, and you can pull it out. We already broke it loose, so it'll come right out. Okay, we're under the car now. Got bad lighting, but go ahead and wiggle this. I guess that locking pin locked back in, so I'm gonna go ahead and give it another whack with the crowbar like I showed you before. It'd be better if you have lifted up on both ends so you don't stress the joints, but it's gonna be kind of hard for me to do that while I'm using the camera. But it is resting on the control arm, so I'm just gonna go ahead and wiggle it loose. And the splines are out. It's resting there, so it's not being stressed. I'm gonna go ahead and pull it out from the other side. It'd be best if you have somebody or yourself hold it up on one end and use the other hand, pull it out with this on this side. That way you don't stress or drop this. If you drop it and it hits the splined end and breaks one of those teeth off, you're going to be screwed because it may not fit right now or it may slip. So you want to be careful with it. But as I was saying, mine is resting on my control arm over there and the subframe itself. So I'm going to go ahead and pull it out. And now that the splines are out, you're good to go. You just pull it out from the other side. Next, we need to take this the steering thing off. The name of it slipped my mind, but it's only held on with 2 bolts. They come from the top. They're 18 millimeter. I have a wrench on this one here, and the other one, the bolt comes out of the subframe right here, so you go straight up and it's just in there. It's going to be kind of harder to get to. Just going to use a ratchet, maybe with an extension. We're not going to take it out of the car. We're only doing that because I am choosing to do it, because I don't want to have to take the steering column off of it, because once you do that, you're messing with the airbag, that clock thing that I don't want to have to deal with. So it may cause a problem, it may not cause a problem. That's why I said it was important that you lock your steering wheel, but I'd rather not have to deal with it. So for the steering rack, remembered what it's called, I put an 18 millimeter. It doesn't have to be a deep socket, but that's just what I had sitting right next to me. So, and then I used a cheater bar, which actually is the handle to an engine hoist jack, and you just makes it a lot easier. So that's for that one. These bolts are actually pretty long, so it actually hits up there. You can, since it's not attached anymore, you could, well, if the bolt didn't fall back in, you could actually slide it over that much and pull the bolts out. But I'm actually just going to leave it there because we're not going to remove it. We're just going to pull, well, we're actually going to lower this down. So basically that's just going to lift up. It'll be fine. Now for the other side. Now for this one, they're pretty tight, but you could take a hammer to it still. Not really much room to work with here, but yeah, it's pretty difficult. It might be better to take a cheater bar at an angle kind of and just pull it this way. Okay, I ended up getting that bolt. Basically, I couldn't get a cheater bar in there, so I just wrapped it like that, had it all the way back as far as possible, held on to the side of the car and just pulled. I don't like doing that because I do like to hold my tools onto the bolt firmly so I don't strip it out, but I didn't really feel like I had much choice. Also, I came across this heat shield here that is right below where the exhaust attaches to the engine, and this is, I've been having a rattle at low speeds, low RPMs, low speeds while accelerating, and it's because my heat shield's broken. So it could be, if it's rattling a lot, it could actually be hitting the exhaust pipe, or it's just rattling on the engine. But I think I'm gonna go to a scrapyard and get one of those because it's rather annoying. By the way, you don't need to take that bolt out all the way because we're not going to be removing the steering rack. We're actually just loosening it, that way we don't stress the steering column since we're not going to disconnect it. Next we're going to be breaking loose the transmission bolts. Now it looks to me that there's one right here on the back side of the transmission that goes, this is where the axle for the passenger side comes out of. So on the back side of the transmission, it appears that there's a bolt there. There's this bolt, and this bolt down here are actually for a transmission mount here. If you wanted to, you could just take this one bolt off, but you would actually have to either lift or, yeah, you'd have to lift the transmission up above the top of this round butt thing, because I'm not going to deal with that. I'm going to go ahead and take these off. Just be careful when you do that, because obviously you're going to have to be underneath the transmission. So it shouldn't move that much, because there is another mount on the top here, so that should be supporting this side of it. The engine should be supporting this side of it. So in reality, you should be fine. I mean, it might tip back, it might come down this side a little bit, but it's really not going to move that much. There's still plenty of other things holding everything in place. So go ahead, and we're going to go ahead and break loose the transmission bolts. I'm going to point out each transmission bolt. Okay, so here are the transmission bolts. There's the one right there where my light should be shining. Right there behind that hose. You can see it right now. There is that one up there by that one right there. The whole reason we had to remove the starter. There's one right here. There's one right here. And there's one right there. Remember, that one is a transmission mount. That one, and this one here are the transmission mount bolts. And that is a transmission bolt. So I broke loose all of them. Now I'm going to put a jack underneath the, well, I guess I'm going to take these bolts out first, and then I'm going to get a jack. I'm going to remove the other mount. Okay, so I got the 3 transmission bolts broken loose. They were 3 5/8 bolts. The transmission bolts were 18 millimeter. So next we're going to go to the top transmission mount and break that one loose. I would actually suggest supporting the engine, just so you don't put too much strain on the transmission mounts. These ones, I barely even loosened these ones up, and you can literally twist them with your fingers. You know, half a turn or so made it. So there's really no weight on this right now, but so I'm thinking that the other one's gonna have a lot more on it. So just give it a little bit of a lift just to release some pressure off of it. Actually, before we go to the top one, let's take care of this one. This one is just one bolt, but like I said, I do think it's a good idea to put some support in the on the engine, lift up, get weight off of the transmission mounts before doing this. So this one, you just take that bolt off. No, that's actually a nut, but you take the bolt out, and if you look at it, this just has to slide back towards the back of the car. I don't know if my camera is zoomed in or something, but the only other way you could do it, if you didn't want to have to slide it that way, which I really don't want to be honest with you, would be to actually take it off of the transmission. There is a bolt here and a bolt there. Well, actually no, it would still hit. If you look at that, it's still going to be in the way. So I'll just go ahead and take that bolt out, and we'll just have to twist the transmission before we pull it out. And so I'm going to get the jack, I'm going to take that bolt out, and then I'm going to go ahead and take not take it out, but break it loose, and then break the other ones loose, and then I'll take all the bolts out. Alright, I have my engine supported. which is also supporting the transmission. So next we're going to take this mount off. Actually, we're going to go ahead and take the bottom ones off first, but we will break these bolts off before we take those other ones off. So once you get these off, go ahead and take the mounts off in order of which ones you broke loose first. Now that we broke those loose, let's make sure that the car doesn't move or fall off when we shake it. Okay, engine and transmission supported with a jack. First mount to completely remove is this one right here, the one with 3 bolts, 5/8, 3 5/8 bolts. Take those off, and then this is the first one you remove. Removed those 3 bolts from that first mount, 3 5/8 head bolts. Next is the one in the front. It's this one. That one, yeah, you don't need to turn this one. You can just turn this one. Get that one off. That's an 18mm head bolt. Once you get that out, go to that top mount and finish taking out those 3 5/8 head bolts. I removed the 3 5/8 head bolts that were in the top transmission mount. After you do that, you need to remove the 2 bolts that go into the subframe. They're held in. The head bolt is a 21mm. So I broke this one loose here. Now I'm going to break this one loose, and I'm just going to remove that one, and we'll see what happens. I might end up having to go to the other side and loosening the other bolts. We don't want to remove those ones if we don't have to, but we may need to loosen them. Before removing these bolts completely, go ahead and remove the transmission bolts. It's safer for you to remove the transmission bolts while the stuff is still mounted up. Well, actually, the only reason that bolt is hanging down and the subframe's not is because I still have my jack supporting my transmission. Now, the bolts from the engine to the transmission have been removed. The subframe bolts are halfway out. Can't even see that one. Nice. And I'm about to remove them completely, and then I'm gonna go ahead and lower this side and see what happens. Now it's time to lower the transmission. The only thing holding this subframe up is the jack that's supporting the transmission that is still being held up by the engine. So what we're going to do is we're going to lower it and see how much it lowers to see if we're going to have enough clearance to pull it out this way. The transmission's not going to come off the engine. It's not just going to fall off the engine because it's pretty much in there. There's a shaft that goes from the engine to the transmission and it slides in. So basically you got to slide it off at least an inch, probably more like 2 inches before it's going to come off. So don't be too afraid of that happening. Well, guess what? With all of that time and all of that work, we have to drop the whole subframe. I don't think taking off the passenger side mounting bolts for the subframe is going to be efficient enough. I'm going to try it because I really don't want to have to, but if not, I'll get one of those engine support beams that go over the top of the car so I don't have to drop the whole engine down. I'll just take the suspension off, and it's basically the only thing besides the motor mounts. So that would make it a lot easier. Then I can just drop the whole subframe. So yeah, and I already have all the suspension off basically. I mean, I don't even have to take anything else off that side. I took everything off. The only thing that's on suspension wise is the hub, and that's connected to the control arm. I don't even have to take that off. I'd leave that on actually. So yeah, I guess it's not that much more work to drop the subframe and leave the engine, so I guess I won't cry about it too much. Alright, so I got my engine hoist situated. Nice. Whatever. Don't want to deal with that right now. So If you are going to use the engine hoist, I would recommend you angling it in at an angle this way, because you're gonna need, see how far that leg goes in? Couldn't shorten the legs up at all, so that's what I get. So I actually have the engine lifted up just a little bit. The mounts are still in. We're not even going to take that mount off right there. We are going to take the mounts off from the subframe. There's one in the front and there's one in the back. Well, I don't see the one in the front. There's a transmission mount there in the front, but there should be a couple more engine mounts on the subframe that we need to remove. And I'm afraid that I might have to take that steering column, that steering rack off. I really didn't want to, because supposedly you can mess up your airbag clock. I don't understand how you can mess it up, because basically it's my understanding that that is an electronic connection between the steering wheel and the steering wheel. So if you take the steering wheel off, that's where it's at, and it gives power to any buttons on the steering wheel, the airbags, stuff like that. So it is possible that your airbag light might come on if you do that. I didn't want to have to deal with that, but I may have to. The only other thing I could do is maybe use some straps like I did here with the radiator. Maybe use some straps and tie them up this way. Just let it hang. Let that rack hang from somewhere I tie it off to. But we'll get there when I get there. First, we need to take that transmission mount off. Worth mentioning before we get to the motor mounts. It's important that you use some kind of chain or something. This chain's not at a good angle. The chain behind here, that's probably not a good angle either. This is the fuel line. I guess this is a rubber hose. I didn't know that. This is a rubber hose until it gets to the metal right here. So I guess this one will be fine pushing it kind of away. You really don't want to be kinking your hoses though, so that's not a good idea. But I'm not going to worry about it, because I'm just going to use it just for enough time to get the transmission off. If you can see, the transmission is dropped down quite a bit. Subframe, not so much. While we still have this up and supported, while this is supported, I might just try to loosen those subframe bolts out on this side, the 2 bolts on this side, halfway down, and see if that'll allow the subframe to twist down a little bit. If you can see that I don't have this hooked up the way you would if you were using it to take the hold the engine up. As you can see, it is over here more, so it is going to tilt down, which is good for what I want it for. But I guess I'll get to the motor mounts next. On the back of the subframe, there are 3 bolts right here. That's for the rear engine mount. I'm going to go ahead and remove that right now. Okay, so I got those 3 bolts out, 3 15mm head bolts. Pretty easy, pretty long. I'm just going to leave them under the car so I keep track, even though I don't have any other, well, actually I do have some pretty long bolts over there. Hopefully I can remember where they go. Now make sure you guys know what you guys are doing. You guys put this engine lift on. Back here, I used a little hook. Where is it? Right here, I used a hook, and that's not going anywhere. But over here, I got kind of dumb, and I used a bolt with a nut, which isn't usually a problem. My camera will focus. But that nut is starting to come out. Now, I highly doubt that nut is going to actually come all the way out. But, you know, you're holding up a pretty heavy piece of machinery here, so you got to do it right. I mean, I'm going to go ahead and fix that. Okay, guys, so I actually had a piece of extra chain just like I have on that side. So I ended up taking that one off because I did not like that one. And I put this one on with a hook. Plenty of room. I mean, there's no way that's going to come off. Why is my airbox coming off? What the hell? Anyway, so I just put this on with a bolt and a nut. That's not going anywhere. So I did support the engine. The engine's not being held up. It's not hanging it. I'm supporting the weight now. It's actually coming off. That rattle you hear is one of the motor mounts. I detached it from the subframe, but I guess the metal's clanging against some heat shield or something like that. So I'm gonna leave this motor mount there. I ain't gonna mess with that one. So next, what I'm gonna have to do, just like we did on the other side, gotta take these shrouds off so we can get to these stupid bolts. I hate messing with these shrouds. Big pain. So I'm not gonna take this one off right here if I don't have to. Looks like this one right here is separate, so I'm gonna take this one off because, well, actually I guess it is that one, but you gotta take this one off to get that one off, so you end up having to take that off. But that one down there is accessible, so that's nice. Hell, maybe I'll just drill out some plastic right here to be able to get to it, because I'm too lazy for that. Well, actually, there's nothing else from the subframe, but you do have to get behind it, because there's a couple clips behind it. Where are they? Can you see them? Yeah, there's one right there. It's too dark, but and then there's these two, and then this one, and there's a couple more on the bottom side. There's one up here, there's one right here. You get those off, you should be able to wiggle this one out, but don't trust me on this because I don't know what I'm talking about, I guess. Alright, so once you get those off, you don't have to take that inner one off. This one should wiggle right out. And you will have to fight it, kind of, because there's some stuff in the way. Including possibly one more clip that I missed. I knew that there had to be something else over here. Oh my god. This stupid engine lift is in my way. Let's see. Where is it attached? There we go. It was just stuck. No clip. Oh man. Oh. Don't know if the camera picked it up, but I just popped my back. Hurt. Okay. Also, one more thing, in case you didn't know, this is coming with it. It's still attached. If you notice, we have to take the caliper off or disconnect the brake line. I'm going to choose to take the caliper off and attach it to the strut because we don't need to take the strut off. So I'm just going to go ahead and take the caliper off and tie it up here with a piece of string or something, maybe a piece of wire. This will come off with it because I really don't want to have to take that off. Well, it wasn't that bad. I guess I could do that. I'd rather do that than mess up my rotor. As you can see, I let the rain get to it. This is already pretty much wiping off, so use your brakes a few times, or you could even use brake cleaner if you wanted to, but it's nothing to really be afraid of. I probably said this when I was working on the other caliper, but you do not want your caliper to be straining the hose, the brake line, because that could cause your line to eventually crack. And I didn't notice this, but when this was like all the way down like this, it was kind of pulling on a little bit. But this is actually a pretty good thing because it's not straining it whatsoever. This thing right here is actually slides down is to prevent it from getting kinked, and it's not kinked here. It's good. I took a piece of, well, it's like barbed wire, but it's a little bit thicker, and I just kind of twisted it around there, and it's pretty good. It's not going to be in the way. Next, I'm going to go ahead and take the control arm bolt out and take this hub off, and then I'm going to take the two subframe bolts out, and then it should actually drop down. I'm going to support the transmission side of the engine with the jack while I'm trying to get this subframe off. Once I get that off, I could try to wiggle it out of the way. Hopefully I can drop the transmission down a little bit, remove the jack. Hopefully the transmission won't just slide off and hit the floor. Then I can take the subframe off and then wiggle the transmission out with the jack underneath it again. I went ahead and took the strut link off just so it's not going to be in the way, because the sway bar is attached to the subframe. It's coming off, but I didn't want this like bending in a bad way. Anyway, the one that goes to the top, I ended up screwing all the way down, and the one that goes on the bottom, I just screwed on just a little bit. That's just so I can remember. The other one had a brown dot. This one kind of has, I don't know if that is a brown dot, but then this one has kind of a brown thing on it too, so I didn't want to get mixed up. So anyway, next, subframe bolts. Like I said, they should come off. What I would recommend doing is holding the, well, since the engine's being supported, I'm gonna hold the subframe up on the opposite side of this side, take these bolts out, and then once I get them out, I can kind of lay it down or whatever, and then go on the other side, lower it down, come on this side, and eventually drag it out. That's my plan. Alright, so I have a piece of metal, piece of wire. You see that wire going up? That's holding it up. It's actually being held up. So what I ended up doing, I'll show you how I wrapped it around that, because that's pretty important, and then I just bent it around here so it will stay. I'll show you how I did it for the other side in just a minute. So what I ended up doing was kind of like a cotter pin. What I did was I folded it so it looks kind of like a cotter pin, and I wrapped it around the bar, and when I wrapped it around, I took this piece and I looped it through this hole and bent it over in the opposite direction, and I'll show you more in a minute. Alright, so like I said, I took this and I wrapped the whole loop around, and then I took that extra piece of metal that was on the other side. The camera does not want to focus, I do not know why, and I put it through that loop and bent it over. You should bend it more than that, but I would need pliers because it's such a short piece of metal. But I did that. Alright, I got it better. Then ow. Once you get to the top, what you want to do is you want to pull it up. If you hear me, I'm actually lifting it up and putting it down. You lift it up and you can put it up here and then bend the wire over, or if you have some kind of, if you had, like, say, you could take one of these bolts out here, put it through there and wrap it through there. That would actually be better. Guaranteed it's not just gonna fall off the lip that you have it wrapped around. So it's your call, or you could take the whole steering rack out, but like I said, I'm choosing not to do that. And it might be a big pain when I'm putting it back together, but I'll cross that bridge when I get there. So that's what I ended up doing. I took one of those bolts out, put it through, pulled it around, and twisted it up. So, and if you come and look on this side, well, you can't really see it because that bushing mount is in the way, but it is lifted up. Anyway, time to remove the subframe bolts on the other side the rest of the way. I did break them loose, but I noticed that those were going to be, that rack was actually moving with it, so I decided I should go ahead and support them. Alright, if you have gloves, put a fresh pair of gloves on. Anyway, all the bolts are out. I don't really know what's holding it up, but it looks like this side is up higher. Yeah, this side is definitely up higher than the other side. So I'm gonna go ahead and lower this side slowly. The other side might fall to the ground, but whatever. So slowly, I never can operate this jack slowly, but okay, almost. There we go. Slowly. I don't really care how it falls. Wait a minute, what's holding it up? Oh shit. Better figure out what's holding it up. The hell? Oh. Radiator mount. Okay. Oh, and hey, look. I'm a dumbass. I tied the string around the, well, it's not around the subframe, but it's attached to the subframe. So, and oh shit, my steering thing. Oh yeah, I'm a bigger idiot than I thought. because I didn't take that mount off all the way. So, well, anyway, now that I have this hanging down, I'm gonna cut that string. But I'm gonna go ahead and tie this back up because I'm gonna leave it there since I can. All right, subframe's free. Subframe is free. Nothing holding it in. So basically, the only thing holding the engine in is the top motor mount, but that's not being stressed because I have all the weight from the engine being held up with the transmission. I mean, with the engine hoist. I do have the transmission dropped down a little bit. I mean, not much at all, but a little bit. And we will be able to drop that down more. It really doesn't need, well, it does need a little bit more. But first I'm gonna drag this out. I got all kinds of stuff in my way. I guess move my tire out of my way. Remember how I said don't get your tires mixed up? I think I got my tires mixed up. That's okay. I'm not gonna worry about it. Anyway, yeah, this weighs about 70 pounds. I'm just gonna drag it. I mean, there's really nothing that you're gonna damage that's on it. It's all steel. And this stupid engine lift, well, it makes things fun. Control arm is getting caught up on the leg. Watch for your jack stands. Jeez. Good enough for me. Good enough for now. I mean, really? I didn't have to move it, but look, now I don't have anything in my way. So I'm gonna go ahead and position the jack underneath the transmission just for safety, because I really don't want this thing to just fall down and hit the ground. Let's go ahead and do that. Damn, I wish I had a garage. Hate this. Ow. Don't have enough room. Sitting on splash guards, it went right up my ass. Now, you don't really want to put a block of wood on it right now because you're actually going to be removing the transmission. Damn, I shake that camera, don't I? So, your jack should be able to go that high. And I think the heaviest part of the transmission, well, I don't know where the heaviest part of the transmission is, but it's going to be on this end, I'm sure. So just jack it up. Until you're starting to take some weight. So right there. Right now we're probably at the top. We can look at this mount over here. We're actually not at the top, but that's okay. Come over here. Lower your hoist slowly. That's not slowly. What the frick? Hopefully this jack is holding it up quite a bit right now. Slowly. Okay. I'm not gonna be able to wiggle it out here like that. Well, it has to probably come over about an inch. Oh, there we go. There we go. There we go. All right. I don't know how bad that is for the mount, but it's gonna have to do. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull on that transmission. Okay, try not to get underneath the transmission too much. gonna crawl underneath the car behind the transmission. All right, so yeah, we still have one more transmission bolt. It's 18 millimeter, and it's right underneath this water pipe. I got scared. I thought I was gonna have to take this stupid water pipe off. Let me see if I can get a good view of it. I already broke it loose and started backing it out, and the transmission already wants to fall off. Good sign. So it's right there, 18 millimeter. Take that out, transmission will slide right off, because if you look at it, I don't like being under here right now. It's actually separating a little bit. Anyway, I'm gonna take that out, and make sure you have a jack underneath your transmission when you take that out. Got it out. My jack's holding it up right now. It's actually wanting to come out. So we're gonna slowly, keyword being slowly, I don't know how to do that with a jack, slowly lower it until it starts to pop off. Come up here. Okay, it's coming. It is coming off. It's not coming off as evenly as I was hoping. I'm going to go ahead and lower the engine a little bit. Okay. Alright, it's down a little bit lower now. Maybe a little bit more. Okay, you don't want to go more than that. Okay, so the transmission's already coming off. I mean, basically, you can slide it off at this point. Hopefully you can see it. Feels like something's holding it on still. Alright, well, there's an electrical connector here that's got a cable tie on it. Show it to you real quick. Flashlight's underneath there. Hopefully I don't lose an arm. Okay. Okay. So this is a tie right where my light is. It's actually right here at this, right here. You need to cut that. Worry about it later. So go ahead and cut that off. That's off. What else is holding it in? I don't think anything else is holding it in. That wasn't really holding it in either. Okay, let's jack it up more. Okay, that's gonna want to lean forward. Alright, it's off. Hopefully I can lower it down here without dropping it. Fucking jack. God, dude, that's heavy. All right, you didn't do it right if you didn't get dirty. All right, So that's out. This beast is pretty messy. Now, you can't see the clutch till you take the pressure plate off, but I'll tell you right now, those springs on the pressure plate, see these springs right here? Those, when brand new, should be completely collapsed. They look completely open. Therefore, I think that right there is proof that the clutch is gone. So, this finalizes the video of how to pull the transmission, how to disassemble. I'm gonna go ahead and make a video on installing the clutch next, and I may do a video on reassembly as well. Alright guys, hopefully I helped you out. That's the purpose of this video here, is to help you guys figure this out, because I didn't find any other information on the internet, so hopefully it benefits you.